Hey everyone, welcome. Fantastic. Amazing. Great to see everyone joining in. We love for you to have video on if possible. It's great to be able to see you. Also, if you're maybe eating lunch or something like that, that's totally fine. You can have your video off. You will notice that you're on mute. We're going to be running the workshop today. We've got Molly and Kathleen here. Honestly, so excited about this one. We've got some great things we're going to be diving into. Just as we gather and as everyone joins, pop in the chat where you are in the world and what you do creatively. Where you are in the world and what you do creatively. So just pop that in the chat as we get underway, as we gather. We've got more people joining in. So yeah, where are you in the world and what do you do creatively? I'm actually in New Zealand for a change at the moment, and it's kind of weird here because it is Friday morning. So it's an entire day forward, well, almost an entire day, which is kind of strange. And it's also summer here. Not actually a very nice day right now. It's a little rainy, but it's a little bit different. I do spend most of my time in the US, but it's kind of interesting this time of year here, see family for a few weeks. So Molly, do you want to share a bit more about where you are and yeah what you're up to right now?
Yeah, I am a muralist and illustrator. I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where it is very snowy today. It's like our first big snow of the year. So I'm actually on site at a mural today. I'm going to unblur my background for just a second. You might be able to see it. So you can kind of see some like color blocks and leafy outlines happening there. So I'm hoping to wrap that up today. Yeah, that's where I am. It took me a little bit of extra time to get to my site today because the snow happened overnight, so it was kind of slow driving, but it's fine. I'll get all the roads will get cleared while I'm painting, so that's nice.
It's hard to imagine that much snow at the moment. That's incredible. If anyone else has
Yeah.
snow, pop in the chat right now. Like, yep, I've got snow there right now too. Kathleen, do you want to share where you are right now?
Yeah, hi. I'm Kathleen. I'm based in Portland, Oregon, where it is not snowing, thankfully, today. Very sunny. But yeah, I'm at my home office. I work out of my home as a illustrator and designer. Really excited to kind of chat with you guys today about this. So.
Amazing. I love it. Super excited about diving into our training today. Honestly, we've got some really cool things planned for the webinar. Awesome seeing in the chat where everyone is. If you've just joined us, pop in the chat where you are in the world and what you do creatively as well. I love all the introductions popping in the chat there. Have a read. See who else is here with us today as well. Amazing. We're going to hand over to Kathleen to do an introduction and then to Molly, and then we'll get into it. So, Kathleen, do you want to give us a bit of an intro?
Yeah, hi there. Like I said, my name's Kathleen. I've been an independent illustrator and designer for almost 4 years now, which is crazy to say. And I'm based in Portland. I was working as a designer and art director in advertising, and I met Logan through a call, kind of just like this one, a very similar call. And we kind of connected, and it was during the pandemic when I was considering making freelancing and making illustration a bigger part of my life. And I really appreciated kind of the experience with creatives and his outlook and approach to business. So that's how we got connected. And since then, I've really built up from making like a few $100s here and there and kind of casually, getting a couple of projects to making kind of really consistent income for almost 4 years now. Um, and yeah, I'll throw it over to Molly to kind of talk about her intro.
Yeah, I am a muralist and illustrator from Minneapolis, as I said. I have been working for myself creatively full time for 6 years now, which is very exciting. But my first few years that I was in business by myself, I was actually doing more calligraphy work, which I saw there's a calligrapher in the chat, so that's cool. Welcome, fellow lettering friend. I still do a little bit of calligraphy here and there, but I was really wanting to transition away from like the wedding side of my business and offer more just like bigger projects and painting and like practicing some different creative outlets. And I was kind of at that point when I saw Kathleen actually post something about working with her business coach. And so I asked her, like, hey, tell me more about this because I think I'm in the market for something similar, like either mentorship program or coaching, because I just need help, like getting structure with my business, like goal setting and all of that. So I hopped on a call like this as well, did an intro, like inquiry form, kind of like similar to what you guys will get a link to as well, which was just a very brief like reflection of where I'm at in business and what I'm looking for. And yeah, got connected with Logan through that and did the flammable program. And it has helped me really, really blossom in what I'm loving as like my bread and butter of my work right now, which is these murals and illustrations. So that has been super, super helpful to get me to where I am today. So I'm going to toss over to Logan. If any of you don't know him, he is awesome. I'm so grateful to know him. I'm so grateful to be hosting with him today. He has his entrepreneurship masters. He ran his own creative business for like 11 years. He has worked with helping curate all the different like creative programs, creative business programs, and worked with creatives across all different industries to do like grow their business. Like he helped me, like he's helped Kathleen and really set goals that work in the direction of like what you want your life to look like and grow in the way you want to grow. He's just really honed in on those skills and how to like help share that with creatives of all different types. So super excited to be here sharing some tips and tricks along the lines of graphic design to illustration today, and I'll let him take it from here.
Amazing. Thank you, Molly. Thank you, Kathleen. Honestly, just so excited. We've done this a couple of times together. I think this year we've done it a couple of times already, which has been fantastic. And this is really an opportunity to share some of, yes, my expertise and skills, but also for Molly and Kathleen to also share some of their reflections of what they got out of coaching and things that they've learned during their creative business career as well. And just really appreciate having you both here. Yeah, sharing your knowledge, sharing your experiences as well, which is fantastic. So yeah, as Molly mentioned, I had my own business for 11 years. I'm originally from New Zealand. That's kind of interesting. Some people get on this call and they're like, oh, I did not expect the accent. So it is a New Zealand accent. That's where it is. Where I am actually in New Zealand right now. I'm based in the US on the East Coast. Our business is based in the US. Most of our clients are US based. We do work with some people from Canada and Europe as well. But the main focus is obviously helping people to grow their business. So we work with visual creatives, as Molly mentioned. That tends to be people who are illustrators, graphic designers, muralists, and sometimes other areas as well. So effectively, we break it into 3 different groups. Group 1 are like, hey, people that I want to leave the day job, kind of like what Kathleen was, where Kathleen was. I'm doing a little bit of creative work on the side. I want to leave the day job. I want to transition, right? So that's kind of group 1 type of people we work with. Group 2 are kind of more like Molly, which is like, hey, like I'm doing this. I'm already full-time on the business, but I want to pivot. I want to increase my revenue. I want to get more sustainability. And that's really group 2 that we work with. Group 3 are effectively people that have been doing this for a very long time, sometimes 10, 20 years. And the goals are often similar, right? They often want to maybe pivot. They want to increase their revenue. They want to do that with balance as well. So they're more or less the 3 groups of people we work with. Of course, the reality is that everyone has their own story, right? So we have people in between those that are like, well, I have a part-time job, but I'm also a full-time creative. So we always love hearing where people are at in their journey as well. So we are going to be diving right into this topic around the transition from graphic design to illustration today. Honestly, it's such a powerful topic. What we are also doing is we're going to be giving away 3 freebie coaching calls with myself, and also a whole bunch of calls with Paul, who's the creative business specialist on the team. Paul Corgan's here with us today from my team too, which is great. And what we do on those calls is really it's a chance to connect, but also share some tips, tricks as well. So if there's something that really resonates from the webinar, but you would love to have more of a conversation around, absolutely, let's get you on one of those calls. Honestly, I would love everyone here that is watching the recording or live to fill in this form. I'm going to drop it in the link. And as I said, we'll pick 3 people for calls with myself and then a whole bunch of extra ones with Paul as well. So honestly, fill in the link. It's a really short one. There's like 4 or 5 questions on there. It takes like 30 seconds to fill in. Honestly, if you're here live, click it, fill it in now, get that submitted, and then we'll go through and pick people and give out a bunch of those freebie calls to get you on a call in the next probably 2 weeks or so. Amazing. So pop that open. People watching the recording, it is in the email that we've sent out as well, and the links there below as well. Awesome. Okay, so we have some really good things planned for today. I am so excited about this topic because it's a really interesting topic that's super common. And I just kind of want to take a step back and really get us thinking about, what is the driver of having your own creative business in the first place? What is the driver to be full-time on it? Well, one of the big drivers we see is that people want to do what they want to do creatively. Right, that's a huge part of it. Yeah, it's about also, earning what you want to earn and having flexibility and freedom. Absolutely, being able to work your own hours, being able to work from where you want to work from. All of those good things as well. Choose when you go on holiday, not go. Okay, can I get leave to go on holiday? It's really also about that creative side, and we hear this from people a lot. Is well, I'm in a creative day job, but I'm not really getting to be that creative. Kind of stuck doing the work that gets put in front of me. I'm stuck doing the work that's maybe not as exciting. Right. So we hear that a lot. We also work with people who are not in creative day jobs, or maybe they're caring for family right now, and they would love to be getting into a business, a career, using their creativity, their energy, and their skills in their own way. Right. So they're like, hey, like this is my passion, right? This is something that I would love to do. And one of my ultimate ideals of success is that you get to do the work that you love, right? And that the work doesn't feel like work. That is really the ultimate definition of success for me, is when you get to the end of the day and you're like, wow, I've been busy doing some amazing work. Oh, it didn't feel like work though. I love what I do. You don't have to look at the clock going, oh, hopefully 5 p.m. comes around soon so I can go home and do what I want to do. Right. So it's really interesting. And this is a topic that really sits around that, because one of the big things we see is people who start in this world of creativity. Maybe they train up to be for example, graphic designer. They go study and then they end up in a job and they're like, awesome, my dream job. And then they suddenly find they're getting kind of bored. They're kind of getting kind of bored of the work. They're just like, it's repetitive. Maybe it's not the sort of client or work they would like to be doing. Right. And that's pretty soul crushing, I think. So often what happens is people eventually realize, like, you know what? I would actually love to, run my own creative business, but also lean into different types of work, right? So it's often more of that illustrative type work, which often does have more creative freedom than more of your standard graphic design work. We're going to really talk to this. And look, this is also relevant for people here. I'm sure there's some people here that are like, well, I'm already running my own business, or I'm early stage, but I'm more focused on the graphic design type work. And I would love to be doing more of the illustrative type work. Now, I often talk about how, like, well, it's kind of a bit of a continuum. There's lots of different types of illustration work. There's lots of different types of graphic design work, right? Everything, if we talk graphic design, you could be literally formatting business plans, and it can be quite bland and boring, but you could also be working more on really interesting branding projects or logo projects that could fall into graphic design as well. So there's quite a range within that. And it's the same with illustration as well. I often see there is a bit of a blur between the two at some point too, within that. So I think, one of the beautiful things is there's so many opportunities these days in these spaces. So let's dive into it. So the first thing we're going to talk about is making the leap. Now, we were kind of thinking about what we should call this one, and we decided, we'll call it making the leap into illustration, from graphic design to illustration. Now, first thing I'm going to say is that we did say leap. However, we're going to say it's more of a tiptoe than a leap. Right. And I know Kathleen and Molly definitely agree with this, because it's a really interesting thing. It's like, the idea of like the leap, it kind of comes up for people a lot. And it doesn't just come up when we talk about graphic design to illustration. It also comes up when we talk about actually starting or growing your own business. Right. So there's this kind of thing online. I think we've all seen it, which is like, quit your day job and start your business. Make the leap, take the risk, take the plunge. And I'm kind of like, it's a terrible idea. Do not do that. Right? Actually, what you want to do is get your business moving, ideally while you've got some security, because it will take a bit of time. Right. So those of you that do have a day job that are kind of over it, you need to actually try and build things next to that day job as much as you can, so you can transition out of it. Right. We've worked with people who have kind of gone more cold turkey. They've gone, cool, leaving, and then I'm starting. What do I do now? Right. And that can be pretty hard, because it takes some time to build up your business. Right. It takes some time to do that transition. It doesn't need to take years, but it certainly is not going to happen like that. If you're leaving your day job and you're reliant on income straight away, that can be very, very stressful. Right. So we're more talking about it being a transition, a tiptoe. And it's the same with if you're moving from more of that graphic design type work to the illustration type work. If you are a graphic designer, you have your own business, you're more focused on graphic design, but you're getting a bit over that stuff and you want to get into illustration more, don't just cut the graphic design work and go all in illustration, because there's going to be a transition, right? So it's something that, I wanted to share, because I think it's a really interesting topic that comes up, that classic story of take the leap, take the risk. And I'm like, no, it's more about transitioning, tiptoeing, being smart about these transitions as well. So I think, there's so much on this topic, and we're going to really dig into these different things. Molly, I'd love to hear kind of briefly from you in terms of, your experiences around this, and kind of that leap versus the tiptoe view as you've transitioned parts of your business.
Yeah, I think what you said is a really good just reminder that you can like be building some things up on the side even when you're doing your quote like day job. So like for me, when I started with you, I was doing more wedding work. I didn't like cut off all wedding clients right away. I just started getting really selective about like which ones I took on. To basically to avoid burnout. I had kind of some financial thresholds I was trying to get to so that I knew I had a little bit of a safety net. And then I just started like putting the work out there that I wanted to be doing. But I think it's really important that if and when you start doing that, you don't just start dumping the new work in all the same channels you already have. Because like my wedding clients that I wasn't working with, I mean, maybe some of them wanted illustration, but not really, So really focusing on like, okay, I do want to be making this work. What's the channel that I can find that will work to like make this outlet for me? So that was really helpful for me to just kind of like keep it separate a little bit. I mean, I think that there's a fine balance between like looking for opportunities in the network that you already have, because there were a lot of opportunities there, but also just keeping things professional and not just trying to like throw a bunch of things at someone that it might not apply to them, if that makes sense. So yeah, and then also just being really sure that like, I mean, working in the flammable program helped me a lot with this, but making sure that you have systems in place for new offerings that you're going to add. So like, yeah, I wanted to start offering illustration services. A lot of my process did work the same as what I did with my calligraphy clients, but really just getting some processes in place that it made me appear as a professional, as like the vendor that I wanted to be, that it was like, okay, this is like how many drafts you get. This is what the actual final file format is going to look like. And just really like thinking through just kind of like a role reversal. Like, what would this look like if I were the client? What would I want to be seeing from the illustrator? What do I need? So kind of tiptoeing into those and like exploring some of those processes was really helpful.
I love that. Yeah, it's so powerful. And look, once again, this is an opportunity to hear from Molly and Kathleen about their experiences, right? Because absolutely, we work with so many people, but also being able to hear from people what this looked like for them, because everyone has their own story as well. Kathleen, I'd love to hear a bit about, your perspectives around that kind of that leap, that shift as well. Just pop yourself off mute there, Kathleen.
Sorry. I've been coughing, so I don't want to be on the whole time. Yeah, I think Logan really kind of mentioned a little bit about sort of, I was in the position of having a full-time job and wanting to find something different. And I had a lot of reasons. I wanted to do different work. I also wanted to get out of sort of the structure of an office job and all of that. So in the beginning, it was just kind of figuring out like, how am I going to kind of replace this over time? And it took some time, I think, from the time that I got really serious. It was like 6 months of sort of doing both things. But for me also, I wasn't necessarily going to just drop graphic design the second I like quit my job. I think one of the big things, as specifically as a graphic designer wanting to transition into illustration, is that those are such tangential fields. They're not necessarily always separated from each other. So a lot of the time, if I was reaching out for graphic design clients, I was able to kind of slip illustration in here and there. I had email clients that I would be like, hey, would you be interested in me like adding illustration to this next project? And, maybe I wasn't getting paid, specifically for the illustration. I was still designing the email, but it was giving me experience working with clients, taking feedback on illustrations and stuff. Even before I quit my job, I was telling my agency, like, if there's an illustration job, like, throw it my way, finding kind of any way to get that experience and also just kind of change people's perception of me as like just a graphic designer to like, oh, she's a graphic designer with extra skills. And one thing too that I always kind of come back to when people are asking me this question is like to just call yourself what you are or want to be. I think I get a lot of people who are like, oh, I'm a designer, but I would love to like do, and it's just like, that's fine. But you can call yourself an illustrator before you have, you know, a ton of clients or a ton, or you're doing it only. I mean, I still do graphic design work, but whenever I introduce myself, I'm an illustrator first because that's what I consider my, you know, passion to be. That's what I advertise my business as. And you know, I think people can sometimes hold back a bit when they're trying to make a transition like this of like, at what point am I really an illustrator? And it's like, if you decide you're going to be an illustrator tomorrow and you've been making work and you're making work every day and you're putting in work towards it, like you are an illustrator. So you can sort of, you don't have to kind of fuss around with, you know, what am I? Just kind of having confidence that like I'm in the middle of this transition and this is what I want to do. So this is how I'm going to present myself now. And I think especially if you're working within a network you already have, changing that perception with, you know, people who have hired you for graphic design that maybe would hire you for illustration, there can be some overlap. So, you know, I think just having confidence that like throughout the transition that, you know, that's the goal you're working towards and you don't have to kind of, you know, half take half measures or anything. You could just be confident in the fact that that's where you're headed and that's what you do. So
I love it, you know, and it really talks to kind of that idea of the transition, the tiptoeing in, right? It's not the like I cut off all of these clients. It's like I've actually started working with both of these areas, both illustration and graphic design clients, and making more of those plans of like this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm working towards. So I love that there. We're gonna talk about the bread and butter offerings next, but just before we dive into that, I would love everyone here to share their Instagram link. If you go and get your URL from the site, we'll share ours as well. So let's say from my team, we'll share that in the chat. But I would love everyone here. We would love to make sure we're connected with you all. Kathleen and Molly are going to share. Go and grab their links as well, but pop them in the chat and then go through and just like click the link and get connected with other people who are on this call live as well. This is just a great opportunity to also expand your own creative network as well. So amazing. I can see everyone is popping things in the chat there. I love that. So just, yeah, go open up your web browser and grab that URL and pop it in there as well. Expand that network. Absolutely. The network component is so important. And, you know, it's something we talk about a lot is that opportunities can come from your network as well. I know for you, Kathleen, this is a big part of your business is, you know, there's a lot of connections and referrals and there's work being moved around. So even, you know, other creatives is also part of that really powerful network that gets clients coming to you as well. So I love that. Let's talk about the bread and butter offerings because this is kind of an interesting one and it is really important, particularly when we're talking about different types of transitions. So a bread and butter offering is essentially the core thing that you offer, right? It's the thing that really helps you to grow, keeps you growing, and is something you really focus a good chunk of your time and energy on. Now, the thing here is that bread and butter offerings should be pretty easy for you to execute. Shouldn't be something you need to kind of learn a whole lot about and do a whole lot in. It's really the thing that is kind of the most straightforward to also get clients in. Right. So this is kind of an interesting one. Now, I will say it's not always the most exciting thing. It's not always your perfect ideal offering. It's the thing that's going to help you get to your goals more effectively. Right. So, for example, Kathleen already talked a little bit to this, but when Kathleen was wanting to leave her day job, that was the big goal was like, hey, I want to do this. Because actually Kathleen was pretty focused on the graphic design type work, even though that's what she was more doing in her day job. Right? We often see this with people who are in graphic design day jobs is like the last thing they want to build on the side next to their graphic design day job is more graphic design work. At the same time, often because that's their skills, their experience, their knowledge, it's going to be the smartest way to leave that job as quickly as possible, right? Most effectively, right? Absolutely. You could get into something new areas, illustrative type areas, but that transition just may take longer. Whereas the big goal for Kathleen, I remember having this conversation, Kathleen, you were just like, hey, like, I want to get out of my day job. I want to go full time on my business. And I want to do that really as soon as possible. Right. And I think it was for 4 months, 5 months when you gave notice. And then I think it was, yeah, as you mentioned, around 6 months to actually leave the day job. Right. But a lot of that time you were actually more focused on more of that graphic design type work and type clients. That really was your bread and butter. Right. And then obviously the dream was I want to do more illustrative type work. And that's what you've then worked on since, right? As you've transitioned and doing more and more of the illustrative type work. But I think this is really important is that it comes back to goals, right? What are the goals here? And it comes back to that idea of that careful transition as well, right? So yes, if you're already in business and you're currently mostly focused on graphic design clients, as we said, we need to just be careful that you don't just kind of drop all of those clients, drop all that work and say, I'm only focusing on illustration, because there needs to be a transition. And you've effectively given up your bread and butter and you're trying to start a new one over here, and it's going to take some time. Instead, you're much better to transition these things. I love what Kathleen said. That's an amazing tip around like actually telling all of your graphic design clients, I'm also doing this sort of work, right? And Kathleen was picking up projects or getting elements of projects that were more illustrative as well. So I think this is really, really important. And I think one of the really beautiful things here is that when you have your own business, you still get to decide who you do work with. And I think this is a really interesting thing. We talk about, people who are in a graphic design day job, they're like, I don't want to do any more graphic design. I just want to do something more interesting and creative. I want to do more illustrative work. Well, actually, part of it is that you want to be able to work on the sort of project you want to work on, and you want to work with the types of clients, right? So even if you were still doing primarily more graphic design type work, but you were your own boss, you get to say no to the projects you don't want to do. You get to target the type of client you want to work with. That already changes a lot, right? That is a huge change. And I know it was a big thing for you there, Kathleen, as well, in that you were able to actually be like, well, it's not just any type of graphic design work. You were really targeting the types of people you'd love to work with. And also being able to turn down some of that work as well. I think that's a really important part of it that people often forget, right? We often put these things in boxes and say, oh, graphic design work like I do in my day job, I'm kind of over that. Well, part of the thing you're over is actually having a boss, being told what to do, not having freedom around the projects or who you work with. That's really part of that as well. Kathleen, I'd love you to kind of talk to this a little bit as well, because I think it's a really interesting thing from your journey too.
Yeah, this was something I really thought about a lot in the beginning, because, I mean, as designers, like there's always stuff that we don't enjoy doing, or maybe we're trying to shift out of. But there were always things too that I felt like I either enjoyed enough, or, enjoyed doing in a way that I was like, if I wasn't doing it under these circumstances, like it would be a lot better. So I think when you're first kind of starting out, drop anything you absolutely hate for sure. For me, it was web design. I was like, I'm not designing any more websites. It's fine. There's plenty of work out, there's a lot of other things I could do. But I kind of decided what elements of my experience I was willing to lean on to make money as I built my business, because the transition can be slow, like Logan said. And I think we had a conversation early on because for me, money was like a huge stressor. And so I was like, I have to figure out how to, mindset my way out of just being afraid of not making enough money. And, there was a talk of like, oh, well, what about getting like a part-time job at like a coffee shop or something? And then in my mind, I was like, well, if I'm willing to do that to, make money while I build my illustration business, it's like I could make more money and do, something that's a little bit more, akin to my skills by doing some of this graphic design work first. So I think if graphic design is really something that is not filling your cup, but it's a skill you have, like thinking about it like that, of like, this is just a way for me to support myself in a way that gives me, more time and more freedom than perhaps trying to get some other kind of backup job, because unfortunately we all have to make money. And for me, the really important thing was, if I'm able to leave my job, I'll have more time to draw. I'll have more time to pursue those illustration clients. I'll have more time to really kind of make that transition happen than if I was, trying to make something work with my full-time job. So that's kind of where I think my bread and butter has, in the beginning has always been sort of like design support and like that sort of almost like contract retainer type design work, especially in the beginning, was really my bread and butter. But also as I started to integrate more illustration, I was able to I almost had like almost a secondary bread and butter. It was just like illustration that went with what I already knew, which was advertising, marketing, even though there were tons of things I wanted to do, like editorial illustration, people want to do children's books or surface pattern or licensing. Those things were further out of my experience, whereas I could really lean on my network I already had to get, advertising illustration jobs, brand illustration jobs. And that was really helpful as I kind of transitioned to really identify like where I can smoothly transition kind of where most of my money is coming from into more of an illustration side. So yeah, I think the emphasize that like never just drop any of your skills. You never know what you might be able to lean on. You never know what you might find uh, more interesting as you're working on your own or find that it connects to what you want to do. Yeah, that was absolutely key in being able to uh, kind of start and also keep my business going for, a long time. So,
I love it. I think, there's so many powerful pieces here, and just like hearing these journeys, it, I'm sure everyone here can relate in some ways to everything, what parts of what you've shared here, Kathleen. Like, I think, whether you are someone that is like, hey, I'm currently a stay-at-home parent and I'm wanting to grow a business or build my business on the side, or you do have that day job and you're wanting to do that transition, or you're like, hey, I already have a functioning business and I really want to be doing more of the illustrative work. There's so many great things here from Kathleen and Molly's experiences. So I love that. Thank you. We're going to talk a bit more about actually how to get more into this area of illustrative type work, right? How to really get started. And it could be getting started or doing more. And I think this is really interesting because often it can be pretty scary, right? And this is scary whether you are just trying to get your business started, doing any of these types of things we're talking about, or you're trying to make that transition from more of the graphic design work to more of the illustrative type work. First thing we'll say is it's pretty scary, right? Often people overthink many of the elements and they make it more complex in their heads than it needs to be. We need to get clear that often you have most of the creative skills and abilities to actually already do amazing work and amazing illustration work, right? So this is not a big, huge leap, and we use that word again, necessarily skill-wise, right? It's a transition, right? So Kathleen, within your experiences as graphic designer, there was a lot you could already do. And yes, part of it was because of your passion to drawing, right? Which is all connected, right? So, often people think, oh, if I was wanting to get into more areas of illustration, whether it's editorial or even getting into murals, like I would need to go and like train for like 3 years to do that. Like, no, there's lots you can do to get things moving faster than that. Often we're talking more about months and sometimes not even that. So part of what you need to do to actually get started, if you're like, hey, I want to do more illustrative type work, or I want to get things moving in my business in the space, well, one of the first things you need to do is prove to the client that you can do the thing. You need to build that trust. That's one of the big things here. But what do we need to do before that? Well, we need to actually decide what we're doing and who that actual client is, right? So part of it here is starting to identify, okay, well, I want to be doing more of this illustrative type work. Well, what does that mean? Right? Because illustration is like, it's a huge wide word that can be used on so many different things, right? It's used in a very generic way. Often we need to get really specific, right? And we need to start to go, okay, well, what could I do within these areas? What are the things that I could really lean into? Would it be editorial? Well, what about murals? Is that an area that I could get more into? Even murals, as Molly knows, there's so much variety within what is a mural, right? There's so many different things. People get into actually doing signs, doing window painting. There's so many different areas. Some people design murals and get them printed. Some people actually paint the murals like Molly's doing in the background there. Like it's, there's so many areas within this. Or are you like, hey, I want to get into, the publishing side, the book illustration? Do you want to get into packaging design? Do you want to get into more of your illustrative type branding, right? There's so many different opportunities, but you need to start to get clear. Now, you're not going to know straight away. Part of it might be like, okay, well, I think maybe I'll try editorial. Okay, great. Like, let's go, choose that for now. And you're going to learn along the way and you'll be able to pivot as you go if you need to. So this is a really interesting part of it, is actually going, hey, how to get started? Well, first figure out what you could be doing and actually make some decisions around that. Doesn't need to be perfect. You might be like, but I don't know if I will enjoy editorial or doing murals. It's like, well, the only way to find out will be to actually try it, or to actually start doing some projects and learn along the way, right? So that's a really interesting part of that. Other element is actually getting more clear on your audience. Who are those ideal clients, right? Right. You want to be a muralist? Like, what are the types of organizations, types of people that you would love to do murals for? Is it cafes and restaurants? Would you love to be doing in real estate? Right? Do you want to be doing murals in co-working spaces? Actually starting to get more clear on that side as well. And then What do you need to do? Well, we need to build some trust, right? We need someone to be like, hey, like, I would love to work with you. How do we build trust? Well, we need some examples of that sort of work. And that's kind of the whole getting started thing, can be like, well, but I haven't got any examples. Often what people do is they're like, oh, I need like a massive portfolio with lots of examples of this sort of work to get the work. You do not need a huge portfolio. You need some examples, right? We've seen people who have like got one example of the sort of work that they want to lean into, and they've got a client that way because they just need to prove I can do this thing for you as well. Right? Yes. Are more examples better? Absolutely. But you also want to get clients as soon as possible because you're going to get more examples from having those paid clients. So there's a few tips and tricks you can do around this. One of them is to lean into passion projects, right? So this is a really interesting thing. You could have a passion project, something that you want to do that you're going to effectively create in this illustrative type medium that you want to do, right? So you might be like, cool, like I would love to get more into murals. Okay, great. Like, how about you create a mural on a big blank piece of wood in your own house, right? And you just do it as something that's going to go in your house, right? As a fun project, a fun personal project. That's now an example showing your skills and your expertise that you could offer other people as well. The other thing you can do is mock-ups. I mean, mock-ups you can do so much with. There's so much amazing technology now that you can actually mock up designs and take existing work that you've done and actually mock it up. Here is what this would look like on perhaps a product if we would use it in more packaging. Or here's how this would look like on a wall, right? You can actually mock that up. So it's not like you need to go and paint the wall. You can actually mock that up onto the wall digitally as well. So I think, so many interesting things here, but a big part of that is getting clear about the who, the what, and then getting some examples. But as I said, you don't need lots and lots. Molly, I'd love you to talk to this from your experiences because I think you've got lots to share in that transition as well.
Yeah, I mean, so many good points to touch on. I mean, the best way to start is just start. Like you don't have to know every program perfectly. You don't have to know every industry perfectly. Just if you want to start drawing more or painting murals more or whatever, just start in whatever capacity you can. And like specifically with murals, if that's something you're looking to get into, see if you can assist on something. See if you can donate a mural to a school, work with the students, like just get something going. And then kind of to Kathleen's point earlier too, like say that's what you do. At like own that title. Start saying it, and those opportunities to connect with people who need those services are going to pop up. So the best way to start is just to start. And passion projects are a great way to do it too. I mean, if you want to get more into illustration, you can like, if you want to do package illustration, like bake some cookies and print out cute little labels that you make for them for your friends and I mean, you can do little digital mock-ups or you can do like literal actual printed mock-ups. One good thing about doing like an actual physical example of it is that it can be super, super helpful and powerful to get testimonials from people early on. You don't have to have a million people in your client roster, but if you do like one or two murals that you, even if you like assist on something, to have that experience of like who the muralist is that you worked with, who can write a little blurb about like so and so helped me on this project, like she's clearly on track to like have great skills and a speedy worker, like just little votes of confidence can go a really long way. So that's something that was super helpful for me when getting started, was just like having actual real life experience in some capacity, whether it was something I like made up on my own or that I actually helped with someone. And honestly, I still use mock-ups in my portfolio today for my murals because there's certain like styles of illustration and murals that I haven't gotten an actual paid project for yet, but I love the look of it. I know that I could execute it and I want to get that job. So I still, on my Instagram and my website, I still have mock-ups that I use. So those can be super, super powerful. I mean, I guess the last thing I would say on that point too, kind of back to what Logan said a little bit about like finding a niche, like it can feel super intimidating. Like Logan was saying, illustration is such a huge umbrella term. It can be super intimidating to be like, oh my gosh, I have so much to learn. Like I want to do children's books, but I don't know anything about publishing, or I want to do like some little animation, but I don't know anything about like those programs. Like just start with one thing and be confident in your services that you're offering with that. And the rest you can kind of piece together and add on. I mean, you have to find that balance between like offering what you know you're good at and being willing to learn. But you don't want to take on a client that like is maybe something that you've never worked in before. You know, if someone approaches you and they're like, hey, I want like an animation, can you do that? If you've never done it before, just be open about that. But definitely lean into exploring things like that too, you know? And maybe if animation is something you want to learn, you can start playing around with it on your own and adding that to again, like your Instagram or whatever. But you don't have to be, nor should you be everything to everyone, because you're never going to be able to market yourself that way. No one's going to really know what you do. So really try to spend some time, and like the program really helped me with this too, the flammable program, like figuring out what do I actually want to be working on, what do I really want to be doing, figure that out. And that you're allowed to have that change too, but figure out what you do want to be working on and really nail that down so that you can start marketing yourself to the right people so that the right people find you.
Love it. So good. And we're going to talk more about this kind of the marketing, the business side next. So this is a really nice transition here. And I think we were kind of thinking about in terms of, what pieces do we want to make sure we cover today? And one of them we want to really cover is this idea of having a mindset for success and really focusing on the business side as well as the creative side. Right now, you're growing, you're starting a creative business, right? Well, half of that there is business, right? And I think that's really easy to forget. It's like, oh, we focus on the creative side, the work, the craft. We've talked a lot about that today as well. But also, we've got to remember that there's a whole business element here. Now, for most people who are creatives, that business side doesn't tend to come so naturally, right? It's not usually the area that you gravitate towards. It kind of can feel like a necessity. It can feel challenging. It can feel difficult. And part of that is because this is not an area that is natural for you, or you've learned much and all you know much about, right? So part of that journey of, yes, getting into running your own creative business, transitioning out of that day job or actually building it up is going to be the business stuff, right? And classically, what we see again and again and again is that people don't believe they're good enough at the creative side. They're like, that's why I'm not already working with lots of clients. That's why, my business hasn't reached the point I want it to. That's why I'm not able to leave my day job yet. It's because I need to work on my creative skills. Now, I'm not saying the creative skills don't matter. They absolutely do. What we're really talking about is that the thing that's getting in the way of you growing this further, taking things to the next step. It's not. Usually it's not. 99% of the time. Usually it's the business stuff, right? It's a focus on the elements of the business. A big part of that is absolutely the marketing side. Yes, there's other elements, of course, too, the sales, the finance side, goal setting, planning those offerings, all these things, but also it ultimately is about marketing. And that doesn't generally come naturally, right? So when it does come to marketing, we see a lot of fears and a lot of resistance around this with people we work with, right? It's a big common thing. I mean, I'm on this mission to change the name marketing, because I think even people have even marketing, the word is like, oh, it sounds businessy. It's like someone in a corporate, office in a suit around a board table talking about marketing. It's like that's not what we're talking about here, right? We're talking about sharing your creative expertise, right? Helping more amazing people to know that you actually exist. Really, really important. So this is something I definitely want to talk to. And ultimately, it's going to come down to getting more educated about this, testing out some things, trying some approaches. I think, one of those fears around marketing is like, oh, if someone said this to me the other day, they were like, I just don't want to be dancing on camera on TikTok, Logan. It's like my deepest fear. So, and that was kind of tied to them even getting their business to the next level. They were like, oh, I can't take my business forward, my creative business forward, because I'm not willing to create dancing videos on TikTok. And I'm like, don't worry, pretty much no one we work with does that. Look, if someone wants to, great, that's awesome. But there's so many ways to market your creative business, right? Even if you do lots on Instagram, great. There's an amazing way. You don't have to be dancing on camera. There's lots of ways you can be sharing on Instagram. But also, that may not be a big focus for you. There's lots of other areas you can lean into, right? You can lean into absolutely things like outreach or building partnerships or relationship building, networking, right? There's so many different ways. And part of that journey is often figuring out which makes sense. This is often one of the big things we work with people on, is where to put your energy to focus this marketing side, right? And everyone's actually a little bit different. Everyone we work with, it's not kind of like, oh, everyone just does this and it works and that's the thing. It's like, no, there's lots of different opportunities and ways that you can market yourself. It's not always going to be, straightforward. It's not always going to be within the comfort zone. It's often going to be a bit outside that, but that's where the education comes in as well. But to a certain extent, also it comes down to what's your personality? What are your interests? what is your background, and actually starting to figure out where can I put my energy into that marketing side that makes sense and works, right? This is really, really important as well. So, I think it's kind of interesting because, we see again and again people saying, oh, I don't want to have to promote everywhere and do everything. That feels very overwhelming. No, it needs to be more targeted. So I think, such an important point. Kathleen, I know you've got a ton of thoughts around this stuff and so many experiences. So I would love to hear some of your, brief thoughts around that as well, from your journey too.
Yeah, definitely can relate to all of that. I was one of those people who was like, I don't want to do social media, but and I've managed to build my business in other ways. There's so many different ways. But I think when I like 100% honest, when I was first starting out, I, had the desire to do the work that I wanted to do. I had the desire to be out of like office culture and I, wanted to, have more freedom, but like I did not initially have the desire to do business. Like I was not like, I want to be a business owner. Like that was not something that I was dreaming of. And I had to sort of change my mindset around that and be like, okay, that has to be a part of it. So I have to kind of go at that as enthusiastically as I am at, making the work that I do, because that was the only way that I was going to make all these other things happen. And I think the first thing people focus on is building the portfolio, which is awesome. Obviously have to make some work in order to have something to show. But I think like Logan said, like it doesn't have to be you don't have to have the same portfolio as that illustrator that you follow on Instagram who's been doing this for 10 years. Like you're not going to have that same level. And I think people they put off the business stuff until they feel like they've hit the level of someone who already has a business. And I think at the same time, you have to be sort of putting in the same amount of time and effort into figuring out, who your audience is, marketing. Even like I get a lot of DMs from people, on Instagram who have suddenly gotten their first inquiry for illustration and they're like, oh God, what do I do? And I was there. I'm sure I sent Logan a frantic email because it was probably while I was doing, coaching. But and I obviously don't mind sharing, but like things, you kind of have to think about those things, start building the portfolio, but also putting yourself out there, building your systems, figuring out how you're going to communicate and manage your clients, like that stuff that it's better if you start learning it before you have taken the leap or, even before you get your first like client in that area that you want to be in. And that's also where sort of in the transition, I got a lot of good practice, like kind of pitching and pricing and project managing by working with clients I already had, like people that were already hiring me for design or whatever, to be able to sort of practice with people I could already trust with, pricing and sending proposals and all that. But yeah, it can be hard to shift that mindset from, especially if you are an employee and you're not already running your own business, to being that of a business owner who happens to do this awesome, cool thing that you love. And once I kind of flipped that switch, and having business coaching was honestly like the best way for me as someone with absolutely no business, like at least I thought no business instinct or education. That was really helpful to have as I was sort of building my portfolio, gaining that knowledge at the same time was really important. So
Love it. So, so good. Amazing. So we're going to talk a little bit about this idea of opportunities and understanding the opportunities that exist out there for you. All right, we're going to dive right into this. One thing I just wanted to do, because we do have about 10 minutes left of our webinar, is just remind everyone again that we'd love to get on some calls, some freebie calls with people. I'm going to drop that link again here. It's a great opportunity to connect with myself or Paul from the team. I see a few people have filled it in already, which is great. It literally takes 30 seconds. Go check it out. I would love everyone here watching live or on the recording to fill that out. We would love to get connected with you as well. It's a free call. We'll be giving away a bunch of free calls on that as well. And during that, when you have that call, look, if you're interested in learning more about how we might be able to help beyond that free call, absolutely, just mention that. And myself or Paul are definitely happy to take you through, what those steps would be as well. Because ultimately, fear and resistance, is both what Molly and Kathleen have talked about, is often around that business stuff. And that's ultimately what we end up doing, is it's the creative business side. right? That's what we really focus on there. So look, we're going to talk about opportunities. And I think a big one I'm going to say straight up is that there is so many opportunities out there to have your own business, to grow your own business in all these sorts of areas, including all of these areas of illustration or graphic design as well, right? There's so many opportunities that didn't even exist even 20 years ago. It's just got easier. It's just got more secure to have your own creative business. And I will say, we're seeing this a lot, is that actually having your own creative business, you have so much more control. And actually, you can do it so that you actually have more safety in your own creative business. Because even in jobs these days, you can lose your job like that. Right? You don't necessarily, we hear about job security. Well, yes, but you don't have a lot of control over that. Whereas when you've got your own creative business, there's always things that you can do to reach those opportunities that absolutely exist. I think this is really, really important to mention, right? And I think the opportunities are just increasing. We're seeing that all the time. Really, really important. So, shaping your mindset to actually notice that these opportunities are real, they do exist. A big part of that is belief, building belief that this is true. So there's this idea of what we call scarcity mindset and abundance mindset. Well, abundance mindset says, hey, there's lots of opportunities out there. I just need to find them. I just need to lean in and get some of this marketing stuff happening and find out where are these people, right? Scarcity mindset says they don't exist. We're all fighting over it. It's all competitive and everyone's trying to charge less than me. And, it's a bloodbath, right? Like those are two very different mindsets. Whatever mindset you exist in, it will be true. Right. So if you're like, there's no opportunity, you're only going to see that everyone is fighting and competing and it's hard and there's no opportunities out there. And then the news articles are saying, yes, everything's dying, the economy is failing, and all these things. That's what you will see because that's where your mindset is. And our mind will try and prove whatever we think to be real. Really, really important. We can live in the same world and think in an abundant mindset and go, hey, you know what? There is opportunity. Absolutely. There's so many opportunities. There's more opportunities than there's ever been. All of these sorts of industries that we're talking about, I just need to find them. And you'll be the ones that are noticing those opportunities. You'll be the ones that are going, oh, here's an opportunity here. And things will just start popping up, right? We see this all the time when you shift to that more of that abundant mindset. People start saying, this thing just came out of nowhere. And it's like, well, it's more of your subconscious mind actually recognizing there's opportunities there. So this is so, so important. And look, a lot of people we start working with, they don't have that belief yet, right? They're often a bit stuck in that scarcity mindset and the fear of, is this even possible for me? Could I be, Molly? Could I be Kathleen? Like, is that possible for me? Well, Molly and Kathleen also had these fears and had to work through those things too. But ultimately, part of it is we need to shift that belief, right? It's not just going to be, you can't just go like, great, I'm now abundant mindset and there's lots of opportunities. Amazing, it's done. I figured that out. Logan told me on a webinar. Great. Actually, that's a belief that we often have to shift, and often it can take time. Right? We know because we work with people on these beliefs and really shifting that confidence element as well. Because you need to understand that understanding and seeing opportunities is all connected to whether you believe that they exist or not. Right? So, so powerful. And once again, it's not something I can just tell you on a webinar, but it is something that is incredibly important. A big part of your growth journey is building belief, building confidence, because it absolutely can be you as well. This is really, really important. I love that. Molly, we'd love to hear some of your thoughts around this in terms of, beliefs and mindset and shifting to really notice those opportunities as well. I know it's been a big journey for you around these things too.
Yeah, that was definitely a huge part of we go through so much of it in the lifetime creative program and the coaching that we did together that I really needed because having an abundance mindset and getting in that right headspace it's kind of like building a new habit. Like it is an acquired skill. You can get there. You just have to work at it. You have to build that habit and you can do it. If you don't have it now, it's okay. There are skills you can learn to get it. One of the biggest things, again, touching on what both Kathleen and Logan said earlier, is start naming yourself as what you want to be doing. If you want to do murals, you're a muralist. Say it, put it out there, because you are never going to get opportunities if people don't know you exist. So having an abundance mindset is partly just about existing as what you want to be and people being able to find you, because no one's going to find you. You aren't going to have abundance if no one knows what you're offering or what you're doing. Yeah, just getting connected with the right jobs and the right clients is all about keeping an open mind to where opportunity can come from, not necessarily thinking that it's always going to be from one source. I mean, maybe you do have a bread and butter source where most of your clients come from, but having a new idea of like quote unquote networking that used to always feel like such an icky word to me, and I still don't love it as a word, but just having casual conversations with friends. If you meet someone through a friend at a party that they're like, oh, well, I work in a bank, it might be like, oh, we have nothing in common. But if you say, oh, I'm a muralist, I mean, for all you know, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, we like just went through a rebrand and we really want to have like our lobby be more welcoming. I mean, like put yourself in there, be open to those opportunities. Don't be the one to rule yourself out. Say who you are, say what your services are, and if someone wants that, they can pick up on it, but you don't need to rule yourself out from that. Um, One other thing just about like abundance mindset is, there's so much of like an imposter syndrome feeling of like, oh, well, I would love to work with them, but I'm not established enough. I don't have enough of a portfolio yet. I don't have whatever. You know what? At the end of the day, the right person is the person that that client knows exists. Like if they want a mural and you're a muralist and you show up and you say, hey, I'm a muralist, you're the right person. So like right place, right time is a real thing, but you can get this abundance mindset and make yourself be in the right place. You can make that right time. And you are the right person for it then because they're the ones that need you at that time. So yeah, just I think a really huge part of it is just don't be the one to write yourself out. Like be confident about what you're offering, be confident about your services, and put it out there, and you'll start seeing more of these like options come up. That was a really huge thing for me, just being able to like put it out there, like this is what I do, and I'm being open and upfront about it. So if you feel intrigued by that, then that's already a good thing. That's already a good start. That could be an opportunity.
I love it. Amazing. Thank you, Molly. And I think, once again, as I've said throughout this webinar, being able to hear these experiences and hear these, there's been so many great mic drop moments from both of you. It's just like these are the real things that are happening. There's people out there that are experiencing these things and have been through many of the things that I'm sure there's people that are feeling this right now is maybe some lack of belief or some fear, or maybe this isn't the right time. Maybe I'm not good enough, right? This is part of that journey. It's a very normal, natural thing. Very normal, natural thing. And obviously a big part of what we've talked about today is these transitions, right? Graphic design to illustration, whether that's in a day job or you're currently doing a lot of graphic design clients and getting more into illustration. We've talked about lots of things around this. And one of the things is understanding that it's that transition. It's not the leap, it's the tiptoe, it's the transition into that, right? And these are things that both Molly and Kathleen are still actively working on, right? Actively working on and growing and learning every single day, right? Absolutely. Are you both fully exactly where you want to be yet? No, because you've got dreams and goals that expand as well. I know, Kathleen, you want to be doing even more illustrative type work. Absolutely. You want to transition even more beyond graphic design. Fantastic. That's a journey that is ongoing as well. Right. So I think, everyone that's here, I just think, Molly and Kathleen have so much to share around this. And I'm glad that you're able to attend. Make sure you're following Kathleen and Molly. Make sure you're connecting with us as well, because we would love to really help you to see that there's opportunities for you to grow wherever you are at, whether that's in a day job, whether that's caring for family right now, whether it's you're already in business, but it's not going how you want it to go. Transitions are possible and there's good things ahead for you as well. I think, it's always interesting doing a webinar at this time of year as well. It's like the end of the year. It's like, wow, it's almost Christmas next week. Well, this is a good time to actually think about the future and go, what do I want my 2025 to be? I know both Molly and Kathleen are thinking a lot about this stuff right now and actually going, what is next for me, right? Well, everyone here, like, what do you want your 2025 to look like? Whatever 2024 looked like for you, okay, well, 2025 is a new opportunity. And that may mean it's the year to leave the day job. It's the year to get beyond the fear of not taking action and actually start moving things forward. It might be the year to grow what you're doing and get beyond the graphic design type work and more into illustration, right? This is a great opportunity. So hope to connect with some of you on the calls. Once again, I've popped that link in there. We'll include the link for that short form on the email as well. We're going to send out that recording to people that have signed up. Honestly, it's been such a blast today. I know we didn't get the Q&A because we had a lot to cover, but just really great to be able to connect with everyone here as well. So do have a lovely rest of your week, everyone, and a great Christmas. Kathleen, Molly, I really appreciate you. Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you, Molly. Amazing. Fantastic. We're going to wrap things up there. Hopefully there's not going to be too much more snow there, Molly. And you'll be able to
I'm
get
okay with a
through.
white Christmas as long as I can drive.
That's my dream. I've never actually had a white Christmas because I always popped to New Zealand for
Oh,
Christmas. So there we go. Maybe
yeah.
next year. Amazing. Thank you, Kathleen. Take care. It's been lovely connecting with you both again as well.
Cool.
Awesome. Take
Bye,
care,
everyone.
everyone.
Bye.
See ya.